create a portrait, a photorealistic portrait. So first of all, the first thing that I do is what we did today, which is to take a black and white photograph. When you're confident in your painting skill and in applying colour, you can start using colour versions. But the best kind of portrait that you can use is a close-up of a face that shows a contrast of value and tone in the face. So you need to light it really, so the light is facing the front of your face, okay? And then you can get a really good range of tones. What I end up doing is printing it out on A4 paper, because A4 is a really manageable size to create a portrait, and especially when you're beginning to draw, okay? So that's really important. The next thing that I do is I divide this into 16 boxes. So if you see, this is one that I prepared earlier, but I fold it into 16 boxes like this. And then when I've undone all of the boxes, on the back you will see that I put numbers on the back. But the numbers are backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And I have 2 copies of this photograph. So I've got one in reserve for later, numbered exactly the same. All right. So that's the first thing I do. I then have a 4 piece of paper. Okay, I usually use cartridge, about 200 grams worth, so it's quite thick, milligrams of paper. It's a thick cartridge. Don't use thin paper, because you're going to draw on here and you're going to have to rub it out, and it's really, really tricky to rub out on thin paper. So make sure you're using quite sturdy cartridge. You're going to divide your A4 paper in exactly the same way, but you need to number the boxes. So what I tend to do is put just a tiny little number in the corner like this, because this number 1 over here is this box here, and it's just so that I know. So on the front of my paper, the numbers are going in the opposite direction to the right, and that's so I know where all the information needs to go. Okay. Also, you'll see that I've got a range of pencils that I use, and when you're drawing the outline, really, you just want to use a HB pencil, and I haven't got that here at the moment. I'm going to use a 2B, but I would use a HB pencil. Okay, when I start my portrait, I really want to get the outline of the head first, so that I know where it's going to be on the page, but then I'm going to deal with all the boxes individually. So the way that I do that is, this is a working picture. This is part of the way that I work. So I fold it down, and if I look at box number 1, I know that the majority of that box is a square and it's dark. Can you see? Because I'm looking at the whole box and that whole small shape. So I copy the shape in here first of all, and I just put that line in the edge of the photograph as well in here. Or you can take it right down if you want, if you keep the colour the same, but I'm going to keep mine in here so I know that box number 1 is like that. And then I move on to the next box above it, this box here, and that is box number 9. So I'm going into box number 9, and I fold up my piece of paper, and if you look, it looks like this. But I am terrible at drawing portraits, and I like to change all the way that my things look. So I turn things round. So if I turn it round this way, it just sits like a landscape, and it's really, really easy then for me to draw. So I turn my paper around, and then I copy that shape as it is here, because it's much simpler, and I can just get that outline in. And then I'm going to go on to the next box. Okay, I'm going to do 1/3 one. This is the next one up, number 5, but you do all the edges first. And once you've done that, you've kind of plotted out, can you see, the outline of your work. So I'm just going to put this in, and it's just like a little bit of a hill on a landscape with a little dip down here, and it goes up. So that's kind of my portrait so far, and this is the image that I have, just so that you can see that I'm making it as accurate as I can. Can you see that? Okay. But I don't record any of the shapes, the outlines. There is no contour for me, because that is really tricky, recording the contour, because as soon as you do that, you start turning eyes into pretty eyes and noses into pretty noses and mouths into pretty mouths. I don't know why we do it as human beings, but when you're drawing, you seem to make things look better than they are in your imagination, and that can be a problem when you're drawing, because if you want someone to look like the portrait, it's better to record the information as shape and colour. So I always use the circular motion. I'm just going to turn it over and show you. This is where I plant my hand in. I've shown you this technique on many occasions before, but I push this part of my hand into the table and I plant it down, and I use this pointy finger and my thumb and use a rapid motion like this, okay, to record tonal information. And I just build up the boxes like that, looking at one box at a time. So if I'm doing this box here and I'm looking at the corner over here, I know that this student's braids are just here, so I'm just going to put in a line here, but I know all of this box here is this colour. I'm using my 2B pencil, but because it hasn't got enough depth of tone, I'm going to move on to a 6B, because it's going to take me a quicker amount of time to get that tone in, and I can make it a lot darker a lot quicker. So you can see if I use a rapid motion, I can get a nice flat tone across to build up my portrait. And also the other thing that I do is I don't normally lean on tables on their own. I usually have a really nice soft book underneath it, like my art pad, the back of the art pad, the cardboard side. I usually use that. So I build up the tone in sections like this. If I just show you, so it will look like this, but I can make that tone darker or lighter just by how much I record with the information, but I'm not digging my pencil into the paper. You want your tone to go over the top, like smooth on the top, and you want to be able to really get rid of that tone if you can without any marks underneath, okay? Because this drawing is a working drawing, and sometimes you're going to have to rub stuff out, okay? This rubber isn't the best rubber, and the dark tones are hard to rub out, but you don't want any dig lines, you know, any marks in there, because that is a problem. The hardest boxes, should we have a look at those, because they are really tricky. So I'm just going to show you now, which is, box 7 and 6. 7 and 6, right in the middle of the face. So if we just go down to 7 and 6 first of all, you'll see where I mean. But that is going to be your hardest bit to draw. That is tricky, okay? Even that is tricky on its own. So that is where the second photograph comes into really importantly, because what I do is I cut the boxes up at that stage, and that's why they're numbered. So I know that on the back, number 6 is here, and then what I do with number 6 is I divide that box, this one here, I cut it out, and I fold that into 16 boxes, and then I make up 16 boxes in here. So let's just have a look at this box here, and I'm going to show you how I do the grid on the paper. So that's box number 6. And then I have one version that's like this, and then the one that I've cut up separate. And then I divide this first of all into half. That pencil's too dark, it's a 6B, so it's better if you use a HB. I'm going to use a 2B. Divide it into half here, divide it into half again, and then I need to divide these two sides. And your lines have got to be super light, okay, because you want to get rid of those grid lines at the end. You don't want to see them, okay? So I divide those up, and then I use my tone again, rapid motion. So I'm just going to imagine now that I've divided this up into 6, but you can already see that that box over there, I know that that box over there is a lighter tone than the blazer, and I'm going to move to a 4B just over here, and I know that it's going to be about this tone on the face over here. Okay, if the tone is gone too dark, another thing that I do to even out that tone, okay, is I use my rubber in a particular way, so I can even out the colours and the tone so that it all matches by going left and right across the page like this to get the motion toned, and also I can get rid of the pencil marks as well with my rubber like this to lighten it up. So all of those portraits have been used in this way. And sometimes I move the boxes upside down. So for instance, if I was drawing a nose, I would turn it upside down and I would cover up the whole of the image so that I can only see the nostril, and then I turn it into a moon crater on the moon, because that's how I can draw it, okay? So my feedback to you is, and what you're doing when you're drawing is always turn it around, like eyes, cover up the eye so you've only got that part of the shape so you can focus. Or hold your hand in different ways, or break it into boxes and cover it up when you're drawing it so it doesn't look like an eye. Because as soon as your mind knows it's an eye, it makes it beautiful. Does that help you?
Yeah.
You